Hello everybody and welcome to video number 7 in my EFT series. It is a follow-on video from the last video I did on grief, and there was a feedback. People were saying, why is it that I am resisting tapping? What stops me from tapping? And I said to that person, or I answered that feedback, and I said, well, it's all to do with being something new, and to part of our brain, new information means change, and that is a threat, and we resist that, and we are trying to keep ourselves in our comfort zone. But the comfort zone really looks like this, because we are experiencing constant fight and flight. So we resist change, and we also have a set of beliefs which we believe to be true. These beliefs might not necessarily be very helpful to us, but we hold them as very true to ourselves. So, for example, I would give an example. My husband, once he was snoring, and I went to another room to sleep because he woke me up in the middle of the night, and for hours I couldn't go back to sleep. So I went to another room, and then he found out about it, and that triggered something in him. It triggered his first marriage, when his wife and he kind of went to separate rooms, and they started to argue. And my husband would say, oh, this is the beginning of the end of our relationship. And I said to him, look, don't be silly, I just couldn't sleep. This has nothing to do with the beginning of the end of our relationship. Nevertheless, he still took it as that. To him, that was his still threat. I triggered one of his beliefs. On another occasion, I would be triggering his beliefs would be when I would go and see my family in Prague, and he didn't like being on his own. So the minute I told him I was going, it would trigger him. So I kept the news of me going to see my family as long as possible. But no matter when or how, it still would have triggered him. It's also, I mean, I can often see what beliefs people have if I look at their Facebook profiles, and I look at the quotes they put up and the kind of things they say. So there's, say, one person is in a relationship, but constantly you see things saying like, oh, I'm bad, no woman will ever love me. And this, every quote that person has on their Facebook is about, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm bad. But that is just a belief. If that person changed that belief and actually said, well, I'm a very lovable person and I am in a relationship, and perhaps that relationship might be a challenging one, but that person is still in a relationship, and there is still someone who loves that person and who wants to work on the relationship. So if that person got themselves out of the victim mode and changed their beliefs, they would start to attract more love into their lives. And also it's about loving ourselves. If we love ourselves, then a relationship or friendship is always a bonus. We will never need to depend on relationship for love. So it's also about the person, the beliefs about themselves. And before I did the video on grief, I offered to my mum I would do a video for her eyesight, because she has been complaining that her eyes are very weepy. It was connected to a cold, but she almost has a fear, oh, I can't see. And so I said to my mum, well, what is behind that fear? What emotion is there behind? How would you describe it? Where do you feel it in your body? And she said, oh, no, this is physical. It's got nothing to do with my emotional state. And in meta medicine, it is that our bodies don't lie, and they express our emotional state. So for example, a person who's got problems with their throat, they probably have problems with communication, they can't swallow emotions, you know, it's every part of our body. So it's good to have a look, well, what is the body expressing, because it's like 90% of illnesses will have some kind of emotional trigger behind it. So going back to clearing this resistance to tapping, so we can actually tap on this resistance that we have to tapping, because really our body is trying to keep us in our comfort zone, but that comfort zone is a constant fight and flight, and it looks a bit like that. And more beneficial would be for us to have loving responses in us. So that person I was mentioning on Facebook, if they rather said, oh, I'm actually a lovable person, I've got a partner, that partner loves me despite the challenges, and I'm willing to keep working on these relationships, because we often attract the partners into our lives because of the issues we need to work on. So the partners are usually our mirrors, and they will trigger things that we don't like about ourselves. So any issues you have with your partner are really invitation for you to work on your own issues. And if that relationship will come to an end one day, at least you know for the next relationship, you know what to do. You know that hopefully the next relationship will be a happier one. So let's tap on the resistance to change, the resistance to tapping, because tapping indeed is something very new. And I do, when I'm telling people about EFT, there are people who kind of don't want to know, and very often, and that's okay, because I would never force anybody to do anything they are not comfortable with. So, you know, I will say, you know, this could help you, but obviously it will only help you if you are ready and if you yourself are willing to do that. And so the setup on the karate chop, even though I've got this resistance to tapping, this resistance to change, even though I feel stuck and I don't want to do things which I know are beneficial for me, I choose to laugh and accept myself anyway. Even though I've got this resistance to tapping, I've got this resistance to change, I've got this fear of the unknown, I choose to honor myself and accept myself where I am, because the part acceptance is really very important, because when we constantly are unable to accept ourselves the way we are, we constantly recreate the state of that fear in us. So even though I've got this resistance to tapping, I laugh and accept myself anyway. So now we will be just doing the reminder phrases. So the resistance to tapping, this fear of change, this fear of the unknown, I feel stuck, this fear of the unknown, I don't want to do things, I postpone doing those things, I sabotage these things, I make a New Year's resolution but then I quit. What is wrong with me? What's going on? This resistance to tapping, this fear of the unknown, this resistance to change, this fear of the unknown, this resistance to tapping. And now take a deep breath, put your hand on your heart center. And just allow yourself to feel what comes up for you, because actually very often when I do tap with people and they don't know what it is that is sabotaging them, what is stopping them from making a progress, actually as we are tapping, they suddenly start to feel into it and say, oh, this comes for me and this comes for me. And you know, there is often fear for having to deal with change. So as we are tapping, we are clearing this fear of change. And you know, we can choose to clear it all the way to how it has been in the past. Do you remember the first time you had this fear? Then tap on it. So what is it for me? Right. Well, for me it's really, I've been tapping for many years, and I myself have not felt that much change. There has been a gradual change, but nothing I would be like writing home about. Even tell sometimes doctors, I mean, I saw a doctor back in August and said to them, well, you know, I'm doing this tapping and I'm able to help a lot of people, but it doesn't do actually that much for me. And the doctor straight away said, well, why are you doing that? Why do you continue tapping? And I have explained to that doctor that my issues have been very chronic and that I have been basically ill on and off ever since I was born, that I only had about 6 years of my life during older childhood when actually I was healthy. So what I could say is, if I were doing it for myself, I would say, oh, there is this resistance because EFT does not work. And many people will say, oh, it doesn't work. And I do explain to people that the more chronic the issues, the longer it is going to take for the EFT to work. And people often say, oh, no, EFT is not for me because it doesn't work, because they give up easily. But I am kind of tapping through a lot of things in my life. There's been a lot, and I'm learning more and more. I'm learning, you know, that I have adopted a lot of negativity through that. But let's step on the fact that EFT doesn't work for you. You don't see any change. So even though I have been tapping for years and EFT has not really done me much good, I love and accept myself anyway. Now I feel this frustration, this impatience that EFT has never done anything for me, and I keep getting ill and ill and ill and not much is happening. So even though I have got this frustration that EFT has not helped me much, I choose to love and honor and accept myself anyway. So EFT does not work. I feel so frustrated. Frustrated that after years of tapping not much has changed. This frustration I feel on my own. No one can help me. This frustration. No one understands what I've got. Nobody can help me. No medication helps. Actually, alternative therapists haven't helped. EFT just does nothing for me. EFT is useless. I still feel hopeless and helpless. So I take a deep breath and try to feel what is going on for me. And the fears I keep coming back to is that I feel on my own, which actually was a feeling my husband used to have, and especially I would be triggering that belief in him when I would be going to Prague. So you see, I attracted into my life someone who had the same beliefs as I did, as that was again keeping me in my comfort zone. I didn't have to challenge those beliefs, and that belief that I'm on my own, and even like this doctor I saw in August is an ex-doctor I've seen in several decades of my illness. And again, he said, no, I mean, I can't help you. I mean, even though it was a chronic fatigue syndrome clinic, and even though I do manifest very bad drops in fatigue, it still wasn't according to the guidelines, or my symptoms were not exactly the same ones as those of people who've got chronic fatigue syndrome. So even though I did have it for decades and decades, it's it's still not something that chronic fatigue syndrome clinic would like to have a look at. And so yeah, indeed, it is kind of frustrating that for me all these years I could not find any help, but I never give up. I do continue, and the more we tap, the more issues. So for example, for me what came up was feeling on my own, feeling helpless, hopeless, there's nobody who understands me. And so I will be tapping through these issues just through a single session. I will separate them, split them up into one at the same time, and clearing them now and going back to my past. And so yeah, so continue tapping, because tapping is really good. Tapping works. There is scientific proof that tapping works. And I'll see you during my next video. Thank you for watching.